Welcome back to the Brittany Hughs Show. Happy Thursday, everybody. So if you are a follower of this podcast, you know that the vast majority of what I do, probably at least 95% of the time, is talk about politics, current events, stories that the left-leaning media is either ignoring or skewing in some way. Most of these things tend to be on the macro level, whether it's government waste or immigration, how left-wing ideology is infecting our society, things that happen on a mass scale but that have tangible effects on us, on people, on communities, on our children. And I would say at least 99% of the time, this does not include Twitter drama. All right, in part because it can get insanely ridiculous over there on that godforsaken platform, and in part because that's a platform I know many of you aren't even on or don't keep up with regularly, and that's okay. I don't tend to focus heavily on people's personal lives. I don't tend to focus on the back and forth that often happens on social media when it comes to salacious gossip or some of the more sordid stuff that winds up being exposed, mostly because I think in the vast majority of cases, it doesn't serve a greater conversational purpose. But something happened this week that I think is worth discussing at length, because I think it does warrant a conversation about things that matter and the direction that the conservative movement is heading in. Unfortunately, it does have to do with somebody's personal life, but we're going to talk about it because I think that it's meriting a conversation here. So last weekend, a woman by the name of Ashley St. Clair announced on a social media post that she had given birth to a baby about 5 months ago and that the baby's father is none other than Elon Musk, of course, who has been very much in the spotlight in recent months and over about the past year. So Ashley St. Clair, if you don't know, is a prominent conservative personality over on X, formerly known as Twitter. She was a writer for the Babylon Bee. She's got over 1 million followers on X. So if you're not on this platform, you might not necessarily know who she is. But part of what was so disheartening about all of this is that Ashley here, who I have personally followed on X for quite a while, I'm familiar with her, has long preached about the importance of the nuclear family and has publicly criticized single motherhood and having sex and babies outside of marriage. She does have one other child with a boyfriend that she has since broken up with. That child is several years old. But it seemed that in her own experience with single motherhood, she wasn't finding that to be a real formula for success in life. And she had a lot of very critical things to say about the leftist idea that you should just go have sex with whoever you want outside of marriage, whenever you want. If you get pregnant, you can just have an abortion or have lots of babies and get government support, and it's all just whatever. She has always been very critical of those things and a public proponent of getting married and then raising children. So she makes this big announcement over the weekend that she's given birth to Elon Musk's baby, which, if true, would make this his 13th child by a fourth woman. Now, it's worth noting here that the only thing we really have to go on at this point is her story. Elon Musk has yet to come out with any sort of statement confirming or denying that he is the father of this child. At first, I think a lot of people were absolutely shocked when they saw her post, partly because I don't think the vast majority of people even knew that she had had a baby, and partly because of the allegation that the world's richest man, who is currently heading up a task force charged with digging out government waste, fraud, and abuse, is the father. This was a pretty major bombshell that she dropped, and most people didn't know what to do with it at first. I personally saw it on X, Twitter, about 30 minutes after she posted it. And it was pretty clear to me that people weren't sure if it was a joke, if it was a ploy for attention, what was really going on here. Reactions were actually pretty slow to come in, including my own. But the fact that Elon Musk has yet to address this situation one way or the other, to me, lends some legitimacy to this story, that there's at least some likelihood, if not a high likelihood, that he is this child's father. Because you would think if he had just never heard of her or never had a relationship with her, particularly one that could have led to a child, it would be pretty easy to just come out and say that, right? I've never met this woman. I've never been with this woman. I have absolutely no idea what she's talking about. He hasn't said any of that. He hasn't really said anything one way or the other, which tells me there's at least some truth to her claims here. Now, she went on to give an interview with the New York Post just a couple of days after making this big announcement, which is interesting because on the one hand, she claimed that the only reason she was coming forward in the first place was because she was about to be exposed by a tabloid, and she never wanted any of this to be made public, and she wanted people to respect her privacy. But then she goes and gives this big full-scale interview to the New York Post, including a photo shoot of her in her New York City apartment, which she said Elon Musk has actually been paying for. So you kind of have to question some motivations there, I think. At least it opens the door to some speculation. But in the interview, she said that she met Elon Musk while she was in Texas on assignment with the Babylon Bee in 2023. She said he asked her to accompany him on a trip. Things apparently took off from there, and she eventually became pregnant. Now, she alleges that Elon declined to put his name on the baby's birth certificate, citing safety and security concerns, that his team advised her to keep her pregnancy a secret, not tell anybody about the baby after the baby was born, and that she's essentially been living in isolation up there in this swanky New York City apartment for months. It's also notable, I would say, that she posted this on Valentine's Day and gave an interview in which she is clearly upset that her child's father is not answering her phone calls. And on the same day that, this is the same day that Elon Musk is at the White House and he's carting around his other son by another woman while his third baby mama is sitting there on the Oval Office couch holding their kids. All of this just seems a little bit like coincidental timing here, which I say not because we should be sitting here like voyeurs gobbling up the details of this story just because it's, titillating gossip, but because it shows the unavoidable damage and the fallout that this kind of situation leaves behind. And it proves why this is so unhealthy for everybody who's involved, why this does not work. All of this, in her own words, paints the picture of a woman who, again, assuming this is true, had a baby out of wedlock with a man who never had any intention of committing to her, much less marrying her, nor does he have any intention of truly co-parenting this child in a stable two-parent household. And this isn't working out so great for her, it doesn't seem. Now she's alone, says she can't get a hold of her own child's father. She's clearly, frustrated, saying she's trying to tweet at him to get his attention. All the money in the world here, and this lifestyle, these choices have clearly led to a very unhappy, apparently jealous woman, which frankly is a natural reaction if you're ghosted by the child of your father while he parades around his other paramour, with another kid by yet another woman sitting on his shoulders. You could say, okay, well, she got what she was asking for. She had to know that this is the way that it was going to be. This is what she signed up for. Well, there is some legitimacy to that, but at the same time, we are biologically programmed to be jealous in a situation where our partner or someone that we considered our partner or the father or mother of our child is out with someone else. That is a natural reaction. I mean, you're sitting there on Valentine's Day watching him and his other children and his other partners on a computer screen. But unfortunately, this kind of seems to be Elon Musk's MO when it comes to his philosophy on having kids, to which I would say there's a really big difference between having children and breeding, okay? We were not created to live or behave or procreate like animals. And look, I can appreciate this man's commitment to free speech, the fact that he has opened up free speech in a way that, allowed for the spread of conservative media over on X, that he has, challenged government and left-wing media narratives and allowed others to do the same on his platform. It's forced other social media platforms to reconsider their own censorship. I appreciate the technological innovations from his companies like Tesla and SpaceX. I think those are fantastic. I appreciate what he's doing with Doge and the fact that he wants to dig up government waste and expose how taxpayer money is, being dumped to the tune of billions of dollars into unnecessary agencies and bloated departments and all of these politicians' pet projects. I am for all of that. I did an entire episode just last week on some of the stuff that Doge is exposing and the fact that it's making liberal heads explode because it's challenging the big government bureaucratic system. Okay? I also appreciate that Elon Musk is very pro-child. I think that's fantastic. I think it is fantastic to normalize children in a country where leftists have convinced so many young people that marriage is a trap and children are a burden to be avoided and having a family is an antiquated notion. And at the very least, you should put it off until you have fulfilled all of your own personal dreams and chased your own career and whatever. We're seeing record levels of loneliness and depression and general dissatisfaction with life among young adults. And I think it is great to see high-profile people celebrating children, just pushing back on that whole ideology and wanting to normalize having children, having lots of them, if that's your thing and if that is what God has done in your life. But when it comes to Elon Musk's own personal procreative habits, they are anything but conservative. I mean, if Ashley St. Clair's story is true, she's the fourth woman by which Elon Musk has had children. He now has 13 kids. He had his first 6 with his first wife, Justine Wilson, who he met in college. His first child tragically passed away from SIDS at the age of 10 weeks old. It was horrible. His next 5 children, which were a set of twins and then a set of triplets, were born using IVF. He then had 3 children by Clair Elise Boucher, who is a Canadian pop star who goes by the stage name Grimes. 2 of those children were born via surrogate. In the meantime, he also had 3 children by Siobhan Gillis, who's the director of operations and special projects at his company Neuralink. It appears he was never actually romantically involved with her. She was a single woman who said she wanted to have children and was considering using a sperm donor, and according to her, Musk volunteered his own materials. 2 of their children were born using IVF. The third was born using a surrogate. So that's 12 children, 10 of whom were conceived using IVF, and in some cases, the use of a secondary woman who was paid to carry and birth the child. Only one of those children was conceived using natural methods and within a marriage. Only one. And now we've got kid number 13, allegedly, born to a 4th woman that Musk clearly has no intentions of actually being with. And all of this is the exact opposite of what conservatism says is the proper and healthy and God-designed way to have children and build a family, which is the bedrock upon which society is built. We have long held that it is imperative that we establish strong, healthy families because everything else, all the way up to government, is built on that. The whole structure depends on it. Now, to be fair, Elon Musk has never claimed to be a conservative. I mean, he does all kinds of things that are not in line with conservative thought. His companies also pay for out-of-state abortion travel costs for their employees. So this might not necessarily be a complete shock. But the reaction that this story, that this revelation got from people who do claim to be conservatives this week has been extremely, extremely telling. So Scott Pressler, who to be fair is an openly gay right-wing activist, he's largely credited with the successful grassroots effort that helped Trump win the 2024 election, posted, quote, "Congratulations, Ashley. Wishing the best for you and your growing family." Over on Libs of TikTok, which is one of the most prominent right-leaning accounts on X, posted, quote, "Children are the greatest blessing. The media are pure evil going after a new mother and a baby." It got better. Mike Cernovich, who is a conservative social media personality and a prominent political commentator, posted, quote, "Glad that good people are having children, even if in unconventional circumstances. Seen way too many friends and acquaintances wait for the right time and then struggle with IVF. Get it done when you can. There's never a perfect time or situation." Highly disagree. There is a perfect time or situation. It's called within a monogamous, heterosexual marriage. That's when it is. It's really not that difficult. Might be inconvenient to our baser urges and what we want at the time, but that is the perfect time and situation. Matt Gaetz, who frankly I think we narrowly dodged as our attorney general, and I'm thinking that's probably a good thing, posted, quote, People attacking Ashley and or Elon over having a baby are probably sad and lonely themselves. Leave them alone. Mind your own pathetic business. And it would probably be good to delete your post on the matter because their son has like the best genetics on the planet and will probably run the world one day. Now, I don't mean to draw on an overly used comparison here because I think we're all sick of it, but I would just like to point out, saying that we're willing to trade morality for superior genetics sounds an awful lot like somebody that we constantly say we don't sound like. Just throwing it out there. CJ Pearson, who you may remember rose to prominence over on YouTube some years back as a young black conservative male, which at the time when social media was really still kind of becoming a thing, kind of seemed like a purple unicorn. CJ Pearson suggested that having multiple children by multiple women is somehow more justifiable if you have money. He posted, quote, pretending that what happens far too often in the black community, getting knocked up by brokies and bringing into the world children that have to be raised on the taxpayer dime, is similar to procreating with a billionaire, is intellectually dishonest. Now listen, I don't think anybody is arguing that it's not a good thing that Elon Musk is financially able to afford child support, okay? His children won't go hungry, and that's good. But let's be very clear, morality is not determined by money. The harmful effects of not having a father in the home cannot just be solved by getting a check in the mail every month. I don't care how nice the New York City apartment is. There are plenty of rich celebrities having babies all over the place, and that hasn't exactly worked out so well as we have seen. I mean, the fact that their bank account can support the grocery bill doesn't make up for the fact that these are children. These are human beings being brought into the world and immediately being deprived of the two-parent home that they need and deserve. And you don't have to look too hard to see the harmful effects of that. I mean, Elon Musk already has one son who he has actively not raised and who has decided that he's now a girl. And the individual and societal problems that come with fatherlessness go far beyond just, whether you or a taxpayer pays for the kid's peanut butter and jelly sandwich every day. That may be part of it, but it is certainly not the whole enchilada. Pearson also began accusing anybody who wasn't happy about this news that they must not be pro-life. He posted, quote, I see far too many self-righteous and tired individuals bouncing on Ashley for having a child out of wedlock instead of commending her for choosing life. Is the conservative position not that every life is a blessing regardless of how it's conceived? Now let me take a moment here, by the way, to pause and emphasize as loudly and as clearly as I can that I, nor any other conservative personality that I have seen who I align with on this particular subject, nobody is saying that we are not grateful that this child is here and on this earth planet and that they do not have the right to life. No one is saying or suggesting that Ashley should have aborted this child simply because it was conceived outside of marriage. Nobody, at least not that I've seen. Certainly I have not. I don't believe that for a second. But you can be grateful that a mother chose life for her child without praising the circumstances in which that child was conceived. This whole situation this week sparked this massive fight among conservatives over whether or not it's appropriate to say the word congratulations in a situation like this. Not just a situation in which an unwed mother gave birth, but a situation in which now we've got a man who is intentionally procreating and creating children with multiple women with whom he has absolutely no intention of marrying or truly co-parenting. Now, is that really a situation that calls for a congratulations? It's not that having a baby is not worth a congratulations. It's not that the child itself is not a blessing. The child itself is an innocent in all of this. But we're talking about giving tacit approval, if not overt approval, to an intentional and repeated wrongdoing that is continuing to bring children into this world who are going to suffer the effects of all of this. Mark my words, in one way, shape, or form. And no amount of money is going to solve it. I would have a hard time, I would tell you, wishing congratulations to a woman who, for example, was an unapologetic drug addict who continued to get pregnant and give birth to children who are born with severe physical defects from her substance abuse. That would not be to say that those children are not worthy of life. They are. But continuing to have children in a situation that is detrimental, that is harmful to those children, is not a lifestyle choice worth congratulating or praising or justifying. It seems very inappropriate to say that in these situations. And you could say, okay, well, the idea that people should have children outside of marriage or that they should procreate with as many women as humanly possible, that's not like, mainstream, right? Maybe in their rush to support Ashley St. Clair, who many of these people do know personally, or, Elon Musk, who we've all been applauding for the past year for what he's done for free speech and government reform and all of that. Maybe these people just wanted to show their support. Maybe they just went overboard. Maybe they were just trying to prove that life is sacred and that all babies are gifts from God. This isn't really reflective of a change in conservative thought here. To which I would just offer this. Look at the Tate brothers. If you don't know, Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan are basically professional social media personalities. That's what they're known for. They're like the Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie of X and TikTok. Andrew Tate has almost 10 million followers on X. His videos on TikTok have been viewed upwards of 20 billion times. He runs at least 2 paid mentorship programs that are mostly aimed at young men, teaching them how to get rich. He's worth an estimated $12 million himself, and frankly, that might actually be on the low side. This guy is incredibly influential, and he has profited heavily off of it. He's also an unabashed misogynist. I don't use that term lightly. He actually calls himself one. He actively preaches against marriage, urges young men to never get married, claims it's a trap set by women. He believes in using women as objects, and he says so. He publicly identifies as Muslim, by the way. He's British, but now he lives in Romania. He's been charged in the UK with sexual assault and tax evasion. He's been investigated in Romania on allegations of sex trafficking, including of children, rape, and forming a criminal gang to sexually exploit women. This is not a good dude. And he is massively influential, particularly among right-leaning young men who are sick and tired of feminism, telling them that they are everything that is wrong with the world, and have gravitated toward this explicitly evil, super machismo caricature, telling them that the best thing they can do in life is get super rich, be super buff, and sleep with as many women as they can. Shortly after news broke about Ashley St. Clair, this is what Andrew Tate tweeted, quote, "If all your children come from one woman, you are not a conqueror." And if you're listening to this show, you're probably thinking, my gosh, that is disgusting. Don't like that one bit. But listen to me here. Andrew Tate, sick, degenerate pervert that he is, has a massive audience. And you don't get a massive audience unless people really want to hear what you have to say and are drawn to it. According to one YouGov poll, 1 in 6 boys ages 6 to 15 say they have a positive view of Andrew Tate, including 23% of 13 to 15-year-olds. This guy is taking the ideas of masculinity and strength and natural God-given male aggression that are designed to be used as tools to protect and to defend and to provide and to build up and strengthen. And he is twisting them into something evil and perverted that is used to exploit and to harm. And that might sound insane to you, but millions of vulnerable young men are listening and they are buying into it. And when conservatives even tacitly feed into this idea that marriage and monogamy aren't necessary to make a family, when conservatives give a pass to one of our guys intentionally creating children like a stallion being bred for racehorses and suggest that it's okay if you have enough money or power or you're on the right political side or you're creating superior genetics, it feeds directly into the destructive lifestyle that Andrew Tate is pushing. You might not be saying it as explicitly or as graphically, but it is the same ideology. It is the same worldview. So I'm not trying to offer some harsh, self-righteous condemnation of Ashley St. Clair or Elon Musk or anyone else who finds themselves in a similar situation. Jesus Christ redeems. We are all of us sinners, and he can forgive the absolute worst of us. And I pray that for both Ashley and Elon, that they come to know the free forgiveness offered by Christ for their sins, just like I did, just like we all need. All right, I'm not looking upon either of them with this open disdain and judgment. There are a few people on the far right leaning Twitter who got very hyped up about all of this as if they were just super excited to stumble upon this little den of iniquity and start pointing fingers. If you reacted to all of this with glee over the fact that a conservative woman got caught in her hypocrisy, you're wrong. Some are doing all of this under the guise of Christianity. That's not Christianity. Christ called out people's sin, and he did so in no uncertain terms, but he did it in compassion and love and mercy. All right? He spared the woman about to be stoned for adultery, but then he told her to go and sin no more. He embraced the Samaritan woman at the well, but then he brought her face to face with her own sinful lifestyle and her choices, and he offered her a new life in him. He did both. Nowhere did he mock and ridicule people, particularly women, caught in their sin. And if that's been your reaction this week, you're wrong. But it is equally wrong to suggest that this is somehow a legitimate and healthy way to build a family and that we just need to throw out our own rule book so that we can expand our political bubble to a whole bunch of people who, they're mad about the price of groceries. Let's bond over that. But they have no interest in the morals and the values and the self-restricted lifestyle that our ideology is built on. But it seems like some on the right are dangerously suggesting that we do a 180 on ourselves when it's the right kind of person who's committing the wrong here. Let me be abundantly clear. Every single child is a blessing from God. Every single child is inherently valuable and has a right to life, and the Lord can redeem any circumstance. But there is only one true and correct and healthy way to bring a child into this world. I don't care how much money you have, what your father's IQ might be. I don't care how many Twitter followers their mother has. None of that has any bearing on God's design for the family. As one man and one woman in a committed relationship until death, having children, and then raising those children in a two-parent home where both the mother and the father play pivotal, irreplaceable, complementary roles. And it is incredibly dangerous. It is incredibly dangerous to suggest that we rewrite this playbook to accommodate anybody and everybody that we now want to let into our big tent, because it's the only way to win elections, or we don't want to risk alienating prominent, famous people that we are just so excited to have come over to our side. This is dangerous because it undermines everything we say we want. Let me explain. I see a lot of people on social media this week fighting about this particular issue and saying that those of us who say that the nuclear two-parent family is not only the best option but the only successful option, that we are gatekeeping conservatives. You don't get to gatekeep conservatism. You don't get to say what it means for other people or dictate who gets to be a conservative, which I would say is fundamentally ridiculous. Yes, we do. Not because of my personal opinion on what conservatism is, but because words have meaning, terms have definitions. That's the same mindset that says you don't get to gatekeep what a woman is. It can be anything you want. It's the argument the left uses to try to completely throw out gender roles. You don't get to gatekeep a woman. Actually, yes, we do. Yes, we do. A woman is a very specific thing. There are parameters and defining characteristics that dictate what a woman is, and inversely, what it is not. Words have meaning, and conservatism is no exception. Conservatism is defined in the Merriam-Webster Dictionary as a commitment to traditional values and ideas with opposition to change or innovation, and the holding of political views that favor free enterprise, private ownership, and socially traditional ideas, all of which is very true, but it leaves out the fundamental cornerstone of conservatism. The why of it all. Why promote traditional values and free enterprise and private ownership? Why do conservatives want to retain and emphasize these things? What is the point? Well, conservatism is a political and social ideology that seeks to conserve individual liberty and freedom as close to the individual as humanly possible. True conservatism says that there is a place for government, but that government on all levels exists in order to protect and support individual liberty and freedom. And government should be as restricted as possible. This is why, under a truly conservative model, the federal government should have a very specific and limited role, because the federal government is as far removed from the individual as it can get. Under that, states then have rights that are, or at least should be, outside of the federal government's purview. They are closer to the people and therefore more directly accountable to the people. Even a smaller circle as that is your local government, which is why I, as a conservative, so often encourage people to get involved in your local government, your local city council, your local school board, those types of things, because those are the governing entities that are most able to personally affect you, and that you are most able to personally influence. A lot of times we spend so much energy and so much emotion screaming about Congress and who the president is, but we don't necessarily even know who's on our local governing board. From a governance perspective, that should be where more power is concentrated, because it is closer to the individual. It's closer to you and your ability to influence it directly. And at the core of conservatism is individual liberty and freedom. But see, the only way that works, the only way to have a society built on individual liberty and freedom, is if there is a common understanding among most, if not all, citizens that we have certain values and a certain moral code that we all understand and agree upon, by which we police ourselves. If you look at the earliest founders of conservative thought, the conservative ideology as a social and political movement, Edmund Burke, and in America, John Adams, while they may have disagreed somewhat on the application and specific roles of government, you will find that to a man, they all placed extremely high value on tradition and honor and a socially accepted code of conduct by which people police themselves. In the case of John Adams, despite the fact that he was not exactly the greatest example of a theologically grounded Christ follower, he was quoted as saying that there's no other religious framework on the planet better for structuring a society than that of Christianity. He said, quote, "The Christian religion is, above all the religions that ever prevailed or existed in ancient or modern times, the religion of wisdom, virtue, equity, and humanity," because he recognized that wisdom and virtue are the building blocks, the things that allow a society to flourish with individual liberty and freedom. The idea behind conservatism was never just freedom to be used however you wanted. The idea is that you've been endowed by God with natural rights to your own life and making your way on this planet, but that must be executed responsibly and in community with others who all agree that there are certain ways of doing things that are healthy and good and are for the betterment of both yourself and everybody around you, and certain things that are not. And we have laws that restrict certain behaviors and penalize certain offenses based on that general understanding. But other behaviors, like, for example, the idea that you work to pay for your own stuff and I work to pay for mine, and that you don't go out and father a whole mess of kids that you can't raise, those are just generally understood to be for the betterment of you and everyone else, society at large. Individual freedom and liberty only works when it goes hand in hand with core values and the ability to exercise personal restraint. I take care of myself, you take care of yourself when we create a healthy community of responsible individuals who can be counted on to live morally and ethically, perhaps not perfectly, but morally and ethically. And a huge part of this is the family. Yes, we all have individual freedom and liberty, but strong, healthy families are the way that we build our society and then pass those values down to the next generation. And when you take individual liberty and freedom to its extreme and you strip away the personal responsibility and the adherence to a shared morality from it, you quickly end up with chaos. Liberty and freedom are great, but it quickly becomes problematic if I do whatever I want and you do whatever you want and we all just do whatever is right in our own eyes, and now we got conflict. This is the problem that you're seeing so much with the left. It's being exposed for the gigantic cluster that it is. It's imploding. You got girls saying we have the right to compete in sports against other girls. Then you have a guy who says, yeah, but I feel like a girl and now I've got the right to say that I am one, and the girls have a right to compete fairly and safely, but now the guy has a right to just declare himself a girl and impose himself in that situation. Well, now whose rights trump whose? See the problem here? We lost our general shared acceptance of gender. And now we're in an untangleable ball of yarn. A society based on liberty and freedom has to be accompanied by responsibility and self-discipline and a shared understanding of what a truly healthy country is built upon. And the building block of any country is the family. Broken homes lead to broken cultures filled with broken people who then become dependent on the government, which spells bad news for all of us. Conservatives at large used to understand this. And yeah, I understand that we're trying to fry some really big fish right now as a country, particularly on the federal level. I get that there is government corruption that we haven't even scratched the surface of. I get that Americans are literally struggling to buy groceries. I recognize that we are in debt up to our eyeballs, and we are trying to get ourselves out of this mess that has gotten so tangled over so many years, it's going to take a chainsaw to get through it. I recognize that we have probably upwards of 20 million illegal aliens in this country, and we got to figure out what the heck we're going to do about that. Because as much as I appreciate ICE and what they're able to do now, kicking out 1,000 criminals a day is not going to get the job done. We've got some major issues right now, not the least of which is the fact that we're all trying to figure out how to pay our bills and get our kids an education that doesn't include them being taught that they were born in the wrong body at 5 years old. I know that. We're all so sick of this garbage we could scream. So you might say what some billionaire does in between the sheets seems like small potatoes and we probably shouldn't be worried about it. I mean, does it directly have an impact on the price of a gallon of gas? How many children Elon Musk has? No. But you know what does have an impact on the price of a gallon of gas? The size and scope of the federal government. All of which can be traced directly back to the breakdown of the American family. When conservatives surrender the ground that healthy two-parent homes are the building block of society, we are greenlighting the single biggest contributor to government dependence and government growth, which are the very things that we are currently screaming we need to get under control. According to the America First Policy Institute, children from single-parent homes are twice as likely to have mental and behavioral problems than children who grow up with a mother and father in the home. Elon Musk's family is no exception. 85% of children who show behavior disorders come from fatherless homes. In a study of 56 school shootings, only 10 of the shooters were raised in a stable home with both biological parents. Fatherless families are 4 times more likely to live in poverty than those in two-parent homes. About 53% of children living with never-married mothers receive SNAP benefits, compared to only 10% of those living with 2 married parents. Together, SNAP and WIC cost the federal government about $120 billion a year. Children without fathers in the home are more likely to drop out of school, abuse drugs, and end up in prison. 71% of high school dropouts are children from homes where fathers are not present. Fatherless children have more trouble academically. They score more poorly on tests of reading, mathematics, and thinking skills. They're more likely to be truant from school. Children who do have active present fathers in their home are 43% more likely to get A's in school. And the fact that the government is so involved in raising children whose parents cannot reliably do it themselves costs mind-boggling amounts of taxpayer dollars. In 2023, federal resources dedicated to children alone totaled $694 billion, roughly 9% of the entire federal budget. This includes education, but it also includes Medicaid, food stamps, higher costs associated with Title I schools and programs for low-income children, an ocean of social services, and free childcare. The breakdown of the family is the primary driver of big government. People who cannot take care of themselves or their children have to rely on someone else to do it. And then that dependence gets passed down to the kids who are born into that system, and most of them never escape it. And the cycle repeats itself over and over and over again until you have so many people dependent on the system that the scales between the needs and the need-nots begin to tip. And then government becomes necessary not for and by the people, but to the survival of the people, rather than the other way around. And all of the government growth and the bureaucracy and the spending that conservatives are constantly screaming about, and rightly so, all of it can be traced down to the fact that we no longer have men and women committing to one another in marriage for life and genuinely meaning it and seeing it through, and then raising children in healthy, two-parent households with a mom and a dad who are actively present and who are instilling morals and values and a sense of personal responsibility in the next generation. You cannot sacrifice the family and rewrite the formula for a healthy, stable, successful home and then expect to solve the problem of big government. They are inextricably linked. This is not about Elon Musk and his personal life in a vacuum. Nobody's picking on him. This is not about being obsessed with what some billionaire does in his off hours. This is about the fact that this story has exposed so many conservatives as not being nearly as pro-nuclear family and pro-traditional values as they have preached. They are all too happy to screech about the importance of the nuclear family when somebody on the other side stomps all over it. You know, when Nick Cannon started popping out kids like a Pez dispenser, I don't recall too many conservatives having a whole lot nice to say about it. And Nick Cannon has money. It was generally understood that that was degenerate, selfish, irresponsible behavior that produced children who would grow up without a dad, and we all agreed that was a bad thing. I mean, the fact that children deserve to be born into a loving home with a mother and a father who actively desire to be present in their lives, that is the point. That is the bedrock. But it seems many people are all too happy to reverse course on all of this if our side gets caught in the same pickle. Listen, if your commitment to truth, to objective truth, waxes and wanes depending on whether you like somebody and their politics or whether they are on your side, you are a hypocrite and a charlatan, and I have no use for you. If individual liberty and freedom becomes a hall pass to just do whatever godless, debauched behavior you want, you are not a conservative, and you do not get to change the definition of that ideology just because you no longer find its structure to be politically expedient. Without responsibility and morals, we do not have conservatism. And without the nuclear family, we do not have a country. And with that, that's the Brittany Hughs Show for today. I hope you'll join me back here next Thursday. In the meantime, head over to Apple Podcasts, hit the subscribe button on the Brittany Hughs Show so you won't ever miss an episode. Also, make sure you subscribe to the Newsbusters podcast with Tim Graham on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I'll see you guys back here next Thursday. I hope you have a fantastic weekend and a blessed week ahead.